Just ahead of Jim Hughson, a reminder that Donnie and Dolly is presented by Able Auctions. If you have assets, inventory, or equipment that you need to sell, email sales@ableauctions.ca. Jim Hughson, as we found out yesterday, has announced his retirement from broadcasting after 42 years in the business, including the lengthy run on Hockey Night in Canada. Jim did his first hockey broadcast way back in 1979. Let's not forget that he did the Blue Jays as well. Jim Hughson joining us now. Jim, thanks for doing this. How are you?
I'm doing great. Nice to be on with you guys. Finally, I had to quit before you invited me on.
And even then, we had to discuss it, just so you know, Jim.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you did.
What led to this decision, Jim?
Just a number of things. You know, our world has changed, as you know, in the last couple of years. And the broadcast industry is changing rapidly with it. I waited through the summer and watched what was happening with COVID in our world and wondered if the travel restrictions and the protocols at the rinks and all of that was going to change at all. And I don't think it's going to change very much for the time being. So that sort of entered into it and pushed me ahead a little bit. But mostly it was just, it felt like it was the right time. I always wanted in this industry to work at the highest level and to work on the last day of the season. I got to do that. And I've always had in the back of my mind that I will know when it's time to go, and when it is, I'll leave on my terms. And this allows me to do both. So very, very positive about it, about everything that's happened in my career and about what's going on next. It just felt like the right time.
You talk about the highest level. Let's talk about the lower levels. I mentioned 1979 and your first hockey broadcast. I'm going to guess Fort St. John. What can you tell us about that?
Oh, no, I was doing Fort St. John was way before that.
Way before that.
Yeah.
Way before.
Fort St. John Flyers, Dawson Creek Canucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, senior hockey.
Well, I was still going to high school in 1974. Yeah.
Wow.
And then did some games there afterwards, 75 and 76. 1979 was Vancouver Canucks and the Montreal Canadiens at the Montreal Forum. It was one of the first nights that Jim Robson had taken a Saturday night off to work on Hockey Night in Canada, work on a television game. Somehow I convinced Al Davidson and the people at NW that I was the guy to fill in for Robson. And so that was my first game. And I thought it was in October, but it was a good friend of mine, Jason Murdoch, who's a statistician for Hockey Night in Canada, who dug through the records and found that particular game sheet. And then I was checking with Robson. I was having a conversation with him, and he is so meticulous, as you guys know, about keeping records of everything. He said, no, that wasn't your first game. Your first game was in December, and it was this particular night and this particular game. So I went back and got that game sheet because I don't keep those kind of records. And when I looked at it, I thought, this is handwritten. He's still doing everything. The timekeeper did everything in pen and ink. And then I sort of calculated and thought, that's 42 years ago. Uncle!
Yeah. Timeout. So let me get this straight. Your first NHL game was Leafs and Habs?
Canucks and Habs.
Sorry, Canucks and Habs. Sorry,
in Montreal.
Canucks and Habs.
In Montreal.
Well, you don't seem like, and unlike the guy beside me here, you don't seem like a nervous broadcaster. You never have. What were the nerves like going into that game in Montreal?
I don't know. It's so long ago, I don't truly remember. But it's, there was some pretty nervous times there too. But probably because I was a little bit more insecure and I was trying to find my way and wanted to make sure that I did it the right way. And I was also filling in for Robson, which was a bit intimidating.
Yeah.
I was probably more nervous the first couple of times I did baseball because as a young Canadian guy who was seen as a hockey guy, just because I'd never broadcast a baseball game, there were a lot of people who thought I'd never seen one. So I had a little more to prove there. But over the years, there's always a certain amount of nervous energy, even to this day, going into broadcast a game. But I don't think you're human if you don't have that. If you're not really feeling that you're just got a little nervous energy and excitement for a game and even Stanley Cup finals. But yeah, I've always found that if you're prepared and you know what you're going to see, or you know what you think you might see, and if you see something, you know how to react to it, then you just get so involved in the game, there's no time to be nervous.
Jim, growing up northern BC, who did you want to be? Who were some of the play-by-play guys or the guys in the media that you wanted to be?
I didn't want to be them. I wanted to be Jimmy Anderson, who was the all-star right winger for the Fort St. John Flyers. The best player who ever played in the South Peace Hockey League.
Yeah.
Remember those days? Those are the halcyon days of senior leagues and hockey. And in the 50s and through the 60s, in Fort St. John, we had one channel of television. It was CBC, and we didn't get it all day. It was a test pattern most of the day. So we didn't watch Hockey Night in Canada. On Saturday night, we were at the North Peace Arena watching the Flyers and the Canucks and the Grand Prairie Athletics and the Spirit River Rangers and the Hythe Mustangs. And so those were the guys who I emulated. When I played hockey on the street, I didn't want to be Dave Keon. I wanted to be Jimmy Anderson. And so those were my hockey heroes. And then in the broadcast world, one of the things I did get to do while I was working at the radio station, while I was going to high school, was I would work an evening shift, and we carried the Canuck games and we carried the BC Lion games, and I would sit on the board and plug in the carts, as we call them, that were the commercials. So I'd take the commercial cue, but I would sit there for the whole night, and I would listen to Jim Robson, and I would listen to Jim Cox, and thought this is pretty cool. So then when I got the opportunity what happened as you guys know, in small towns, the sports director, who was really the only person in the sports department, and he also had about 3 other departments. He left because he got a better job, and I was the only guy left in the radio station who knew a puck from a football. So they sent me off to broadcast the Flyer games, and I was still playing junior hockey at that time for the Fort St. John Golden Hawks.
Jim, was it CKNL 560 back then still? Yeah, it was CKNL. Yeah, that's
Northern
right.
Lights Radio.
Yeah, that's right. It was bringing back memories, my friend. I was there for 4 years. When did you know you were going to be as good as you were? You start in radio, and then all of a sudden Hockey Night in Canada calls. You're doing the Olympics. You're doing Blue Jays. I mean, when did you think you put it all together?
You never do it. I like Robson. We've talked about this before. You always start every game thinking this is going to be the perfect broadcast, and a minute and a half in, something stupid happens. You either say, "Oh, there goes the perfect game tonight," and I think that if you ever get, or if I felt anyway, that if I ever got in a position where I relaxed and thought, "Geez, I'm really good at this," then that's when the big mistake would come. So I right to the very end of my career, I felt that the preparation, the way that I had to do things, probably became a little easier. But it never went away, because I would never relax and let it go away, because it felt too important, and especially when you get to the opportunity to work at the highest level took a while, so there was no particular moment, because I had to work through doing regional games and then get an opportunity to do national games at TSN and do, just sort of work my way up the ladder. So Rick, there was no definitive moment where I thought, Eureka, I've got it. Although, when you get the first paycheck, when you get the big seat at Hockey Night, it is kind of a neat one to get.
Hey, Jim, I know you loved that 2014 Team Canada, the one that won at Sochi, which I think is maybe the most underrated national senior men's team in Canadian history. But you talk about moments. I know this is the cliche question to ask at this time, but is there a moment that stands out more than any other during your distinguished career?
Not particularly, because there are several moments. There were so many good games, and it's hard to differentiate one from the other. I guess the moments that I really loved were sometimes not even inside the rink, but like walking to the rink on a beautiful June afternoon in Boston on a day when the Stanley Cup could be presented, and you were going to be in the rink to watch it and to document it and to be there and feel it live. Those are the days those are the special days, because there are hundreds of thousands of people out on the street preparing to celebrate, preparing to go into the arena. And those are the things that we really missed in the last couple of years. But so they don't, the moments, and there's not a particular game or anything like that stands out. But that I do think that 2014 in Sochi. That is the finest team I've ever watched play the game.
Yep.
Jim, did ESPN or TNT come knocking at your door?
Nope, not once. Never. And NBC came at one point, and there was opportunity there. But about the same time, Hockey Night in Canada was knocking on the door. So I always thought, if you, as I said before, I always wanted to work at the highest level, and the highest level in my profession is Hockey Night in Canada. So because there's an insatiable appetite for the sport in our country, and I was always appreciative of that. But no, they've made their decisions and gone another way. And no, I was never. The phone still hasn't been ringing.
Jim, you and I are around the same age. We're both from BC. Are we going to see a Canuck Stanley Cup before it's all over? Are they in good hands?
I believe they're in good hands. I believe that the team is good. I like their coach. I trust Jim so far in what he's done. He's got to get these two guys signed right now.
Yeah.
And that's going to be really important because and it's quite a legacy to follow. It's hard, as we've seen, it's hard to build the team. Look what's going on in Toronto. Just when you get all these good players and you think you're on the verge of championship, it's not just about having the best players. It's about having the best team.
Yeah.
And we saw, in the early 2000s in Vancouver and in 2011 in that time period, what it takes to put a team together. It takes a whole bunch of different parts, and some of them mean more than others, and some of them are higher scores than others. I think they've got a start. I think they've got a pretty good start here and a pretty good nucleus, and now it's building around the edges, and it's about building team. And we all know that as a group, if they're close and if they're healthy, then teams can come together in a hurry and go on great runs. So I think we're going to see some better days here in the next little while.
Hey, Jim, what's going to take up your time now?
I'm not entirely sure. Going golfing today. And I'm going to do a little bit of everything, a whole lot of nothing, just because I can. And, I don't know where I'll see you, but it might be on a ski hill. It might be on a golf course. And I haven't said I've retired. I may take on some projects, but I haven't got a clue what they are right now. I'm just sort of relaxing and going to enjoy it with my wife, Denise, and see what tomorrow brings.
We could go on and on, Jim. This has been just wonderful, as has your career. We're going to miss you on Hockey Night in Canada, and thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks a lot for having me on. Good to talk to you both.